What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, is Robert DeFelice.
And this podcast is for the juggalos and juggalos.
That video is so great. Why do you jump on top of a fucking barbed wire and a table and all that and expect to feel anything but horrible pain?
For the juggalos and juggalos. Those videos make me happy. Way happier than they should.
Did you see that one of the guy doing the moonsault? He lands like straight on his head.
The guy who does the shooting star press?
He's like, that's what he's trying
fuck
to do.
it! He just lands on his head.
Ugh. Sent that to Caroline the other day, and I was like, aren't you glad that my part of pro wrestling is that I talk about it instead of that I try to do any of this crap?
I feel like you wouldn't be dumb enough to try doing a shooting star press, though.
No. I wouldn't try any of that stuff at all. I didn't even try to do that kind of stuff in a pool. But we're not doing any of that today. What we're doing is talking. Like I said, what we're talking about are the mailbag questions that you guys submitted for May 2019. I mentioned this before that we have a lot of stuff that we're doing this week, so that is the type of thing that I kind of trimmed down the mailbag questions a little bit more than normal, and that's going to make it a little brisker pace, but we're still going to answer quite a few of them. So typical scenario, you guys sent the questions in, we're going to answer them. That's how a Q&A works. And if you have not had a chance to send in questions and all that, you're out of luck for this time, but that doesn't mean that there's not another one coming up around the corner. So start thinking of questions that you want for the June one. And you know what? If you think about it ahead of time, you want to send it in, I'll backlog it and we'll figure it out that way. Also, if you want to chime in with your answers about these, drop a comment below on YouTube, or if you are listening on the audio-only types of things like iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and Google Play and so on and so forth, then go on the page on smarkoutmoment.com and drop your comments there. But if you are on YouTube, hit that subscribe button while you're doing that and ring that little bell. A couple plugs out of the way while we're at it. And we're like 2 minutes into this. Let's go to Howard's questions first.
Love Howard's questions.
He says, that's where we usually go a little old school on it. Bob Backlund kept the title for 5 years. Will WWE have a wrestler, for example, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, hold on to the World Championship for as long as Bob Backlund had done in 1978 to 1983? And what's the difference between 40 years ago and now? I don't think it's ever going to happen again. Yeah, everything's different?
Everything is the difference. Look at the way we consume media. 40 years ago, there were 3 television channels. You
Right.
really have to think about this. Bob Backlund could hold the title for 5 years because he was a collegiate athlete. He wasn't some guy trying to... Hold on.
Yeah, it's a different story because it's, you've got an oversaturation of the product now compared to what it was before. Where, for instance, I mean, look at the amount of time that WWE or any other kind of wrestling promotion would have had before. You might have like a half an hour or an hour on Saturday afternoon or something weird like that, where you can record stuff ahead of time and you can air those tapes at a different kind of schedule and everything like that. Now we've got 3 hours of Monday Night Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, an hour of NXT, an hour of NXT UK, an hour of 205 Live, all the YouTube channel stuff, all the WWE Network stuff, all the pay-per-views, all the house shows. If you had a time frame 40 years ago where you were basically a house show company and you just toured like that, people don't get tired of it as much. And you can have Bob Backlund be the champion and you're appealing to a different type of market where not only is it the type of thing where like you're not watching it all the time and it's not a global presence where everybody is watching it, so by the time the house show comes around you've already seen that loop elsewhere. It's also an old school wrestling style, and a Bob Backlund back then does not wrestle the same type of style that anybody nowadays does. He could wrestle for 5 years in a row, be injured, and still not really do a damn thing. Nowadays, people are doing, tope suicida doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And I would go as far as to say, look at other forms of entertainment. Even, like, Michael Jackson was on top of the charts in the 80s forever, and for so long there wasn't any real rival in the field of pop music. Your staying power as a pop star now is maybe, what, 2 years at best, before your old news. I always equate it to something that I frequently look at on the internet, and that's memes. What is the staying power of the average meme? Maybe a month? That's how fast people's attention spans move. And unfortunately, wrestling has to keep up with that. You can't put Seth Rollins on top for 5 years because people would get bored within 6 months. You know?
Right.
CM Punk was a big deal with 434 days, and that's nowhere near what Bruno or Backlund or even Hogan did. It's pretty incredible to think about how times have changed. But I will say they have talent who theoretically could be seen as a legitimate champion. Brock Lesnar. I know we are sick and tired of him, but he's a guy who could probably legitimately beat everybody for 5 years straight. Shayna Baszler on the women's side could legitimately beat everybody. Ronda Rousey. That's just it's just how consuming media has changed.
Yeah, it's a completely different scenario, and it's not just for wrestling, it's for everything. Because even movies, I mean, 40 years ago, such a different scenario with films. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever the case may be. Like, E.T., for instance, was one of the highest grossing films of all time. And it came out in a completely different, there's no pirating the same kind of way. I mean, there was there's always been pirating of everything. You get some dude that hangs out in the back of a movie theater with a camcorder and actually records and sells bootlegs. It's a lot different than just having torrents and stuff. But E.T. can be out in movie theaters and there's no competition for 9 months because the movies that come out are not big blockbuster things. Nowadays, even the Avengers has slowed down, and I'm kind of not too sure exactly off the top of my head where it is, but it's still not beating that worldwide record. It's at 2686, and it needs to beat 2788 to beat Avatar. Avatar came
This
out
one
10
wins
years
either
ago.
way.
It could go one way or the other. It's 100 million essentially to beat Avatar, and it can do that, if it stays throughout the rest of the summer. But the rest of the summer is different now than what it was 5 years ago, even. And you go back in time to Gone with the Wind, and Gone with the Wind is still the most tickets sold as far as you adjust things for inflation. Gone with the Wind is still the number one in box office, but it doesn't match up to Avatar. And if all things were on an equal playing field, I don't think Bob Backlund now would be anywhere close to a 5-year title reign. I don't think that he would have a 5-month title reign.
No. Maybe in the UFC.
Yeah, Bob Backlund would probably go to UFC instead. He would be that type of guy because he's a legit, he knows what he's doing. He's a real wrestler, and I don't think he would have the type of character either because now that stone cold white meat babyface, you're just a good chap kind of thing. Like that
Well, it
doesn't
came
play as
back
much.
around a little bit when, John Cena kind of reversed, and I know he gets flack for this, but he reversed the clock a little bit, and he went from an aggressive babyface to, a smiling, shaking hands, doing it for the kids babyface.
Even that though, the peak of that was 2006. That's 13 years ago.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy to think of?
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
That's an entire teenager ago. Like, it's crazy. Time flies. But no, I don't think that we're ever going to get anybody to hold the title for 5 years. I think AJ Styles holding it for 1 was massively impressive.
I don't even think you'll get past 434. Brock did, but he's different because he wasn't there.
He gets special treatment and everything too.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get a full-time guy holding that title for 500 days ever again.
Yeah. Second question from Howard. Speaking of the women's championship, could Becky Lynch hold on to the title for as long as Fabulous Moolah did for 28 years? No, absolutely not.
Well, hold on. I want to be funny here, but no, we just kind of dissected how that happened. And even Moolah, there was so much shiftiness.
Yeah, she didn't really hold on to that title for 28 years. It was just a matter of being like, let's just acknowledge it. But he did the math out, and he said that if Becky did, she'd be 60 years old when she lost the title. Which is like, you know what? Hey, that'd be kind of funny. Like, who was the last of a different championship? We had Charlotte was the last Divas champion, and she never lost the title because she won that Raw Women's Championship. And I guess if they wanted to, somewhere down the line, they could be like, hey, she never lost the Divas Championship, and she's actually been holding on to it in her house for 30 years or so. You know what I mean? Like, that's the
Yeah,
only
I
way that
mean,
they could do something like
technically,
that.
Alundra Blaze always likes to say she still has the WWF Women's Championship that she dropped in the garbage.
Yeah.
You know? So who was the last women's champion before they rechristened the title?
When they switched it over to the Divas one.
Yeah.
I just came across this information the other day, and now I'm forgetting it. I feel like it was somebody kind of like that you wouldn't think of, like a Melina or something.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Let's see,
I think it
WWE
was Melina.
Women's Championship, because that was around the time frame, like her, Mickey James,
Michelle McCool.
yeah, Michelle McCool, Lay Cool, that whole thing. Great time to do that on the air. It looks like that it was Layla, Michelle McCool, that whole thing. It says retired after Michelle McCool, who had unofficially co-reigned as champion with Layla, defeated Melina. So Michelle McCool, I guess,
No,
kind of.
Melina was involved in it, though. I remember
Yeah.
Melina being in the final matchup. Yeah, I don't think Becky Lynch will be champion for 28 years. I don't even think Moolah should have been champion for 28 years, but there's so much shadiness to that. You should watch Dark Side of the Ring. They have a good special on Moolah and all the bullshit she did or didn't do. It's up for interpretation.
More talk about that a little bit later on with one of Peter's questions, actually.
The fabulous Schrodinger. Yeah.
I actually don't think Becky Lynch is keeping the Raw Women's Championship throughout 2019 even. I think she's losing it
no,
around
she'll lose it
like
by SummerSlam.
SummerSlam. Yeah. I'm thinking that too. Let's go to Marco's questions. Since Brock won the briefcase in the most lackluster way, how would you book a win for any superstar? A good one I heard was the lights going black near the end of the match, and Aleister Black is sitting there with his legs positioned crossed at the top of the briefcase when the lights comes back on. I like that. That seems kind of cool.
Taker would have been a good Money in the Bank. When you consider elements like that, he would have been a really good Money in the Bank guy.
It would have been cool to see him do something like summon lightning to like shock it down and fall into his hands or something. But the only thing I could think of was, because I don't like the idea necessarily of people coming out at the last second and winning and they weren't in the rest of the match. But as a means to like have somebody win it, having been in the match, I want to see somebody knock it down using the ladder. Like swing the ladder like to kind of like knock it off of its thing. I don't know how they would be able to pull that off, but I think that'd be kind of interesting.
They did a really cool one where Swagger, Ziggler, and Kofi were in an Intercontinental title ladder match, and Ziggler retained by simply being underneath the ladder, and Kofi and Swagger were fighting over it, and it fell, and Ziggler happened to grab it. And since he was the first one to gain possession, he won the title.
I think that they should try to figure out some more ideas like that. Like, just have some kind of brainstorm session one random afternoon and just have it like 20 people there and be like, all right, so how do we do this? And you could do it for tag titles. You could do it for briefcase. You could do it for contracts. Like, whatever is like on a ladder. You can play around with it a little bit more. The briefcase is a little more sturdy, so you have a little bit more flexibility, I think. But just kind of think of random ideas. I like the Aleister Black one though; it seems kind of fun.
And while we're talking about it, how cool would it be if in a tag team ladder match, you know, two members of the opposite teams happen to grab belts, so now they're
the champions and it's not their
they're
partners.
forced to be a team.
I would like that. Yeah.
I think there's so much more that you could play with than they actually do. Let's not forget, Money in the Bank is still such a new concept. Before, Edge just happened to randomly cash it in, we were all under the assumption you have to announce, you have to, make it clear it's going to be at this date at this time. And then it became a random thing, you know? And I like that. I like when they play with stuff. But another way I would book it, and I always hate that the streak ended without this, when the ladder match was at WrestleMania, I always thought it'd be cool if, like, Drew McIntyre, let's say, won the ladder match, and then The Undertaker successfully retains the title or wins the title and carries on the streak, and then McIntyre cashes in, and then it's like, oh, you son of a bitch, you broke the streak without even having a match. Like that would have been a really cool way to do things.
I still am waiting to see somebody cash in on a non-world title.
I'm glad that they haven't established that, because then I think they would start using it as a get out of jail free card for any situation, any title.
I think that actually makes it better. Because then imagine like the boost that would come, let's just say randomly this year, if it would have gone to Andrade. And I know that the rationality is, why would Andrade ever want a championship other than the WWE championship? And then it's like, well, the only reason why they should want that more is because we know that that's not the one that means the most. But realistically speaking, if this were a real company, you should want to have any championship. You should be super proud to be the tag team champion or to be the United States champion. And that should mean a lot. So, like, imagine if somebody like an Andrade were to be like, Money in the Bank, and he cashes in on the Intercontinental Championship. People would be like, wow, out of all the titles, he went for that one. What a boost to the Intercontinental title, you know?
I think, in theory, it sounds so good, but they would just begin to use it as like, alright, so Money in the Bank doesn't have to mean as much, because they already try to cut down the significance of every prize any chance they get.
I think that would be a good way to spice things up and to allow more flexibility, even if you went with the world title most of the time, just to be like, all right, you win the Money in the Bank briefcase, you can cash in for any title at any time. And if they do have, like, if the New Day, one of those members won and they wanted to cash in on the tag titles, then they could, you know?
I think,
And that might even be a good way to, like, fuck around with people, because then if you have, like, a Baron Corbin win, and he seems to be heading towards the United States title, then one random night he wins the world title, and you're like, dude, what the fuck? I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? Like,
there's so much they could play with that they just don't, because, let's be honest, the Money in the Bank, above all else, has become a symbol of their laziness.
oh, they very quickly got into the Boombox thing.
Yeah, which, on the one hand, really cool, but I'm hoping I'm not over it by, like, Super Showdown, you know?
I'm kind of over it already.
I just like that they made it a boombox, and it's a weird thing that it's Lesnar. This is not supposed to be Brock Lesnar, but it is, and it's the funniest thing.
This is completely unrelated, but I think that this is funny. For Marco's question, he says, "What are your thoughts on making Lars more of a freak by making him a cannibal?"
Oh my god!
Fucking do it! Why not? You just have him backstage, and he's just like chomping on like a turkey leg, and somebody could be like, "Yo, where'd you get that turkey leg?" And he could be like, "Yeah, turkey."
Turkey. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you can't get like too cartoony unless you want to be cartoony, because you can have a cartoony cannibal. Why not? It's got more fucking character than what he's got right now. Because explain to me who Lars Sullivan right now is. Big dude who beats people up. Okay.
I liked Lars Sullivan, and then you said Vladimir Kozlov, so
Yeah,
there
he's
goes.
he's Vladimir Kozlov without the Russian thing.
I didn't know
So
that he actually had the Giant's disease, and
he does.
he got the tumor taken out a lot sooner than most. But yeah, he actually had the Giant's disease.
Huh. Is that why he's not as tall?
Yeah, like he's like if you look at his features, they're a little, he has signs of it, but I learned that in the most recent Observer.
Hmm.
Shout out to Dave Meltzer.
Would you be cool with the cannibal thing though?
It'd be so weird. I don't even know how you begin to tell that story. And what's the payoff? How do you pay that off? Like,
Uh, I don't know, one of these Memorial Day barbecue segments.
oh my god. Well, it's better than what I was thinking. I was gonna say, does he have a world title made of like human flesh and meat? And like, we're weird people.
I mean, you couldn't do it, but it'd be kind of funny if you did something where he just sort of like would bite people in his matches, you know?
Yeah, that I could see that playing a role.
Like he couldn't really like bite people, like, like bite their fucking ear off or something like that, because that's reality. But like, you could play into the idea that he's like biting their nose or something. Like that could work. Of course, it's not going to happen, but hey, I'm all for giving Lars Sullivan an actual character, because right now he just has nothing and he's boring as hell to me.
I don't I don't even know what a character is anymore. In today's context, because is Sami Zayn a character? Because
I
he's
I
just kind of
take
crapping on.
I take characters as, do they have something that you can explain who they are other than that they're a wrestler? So like the Undisputed Era, they don't have characters. They're just assholes.
But it
And
works.
yeah, I mean that's perfectly fine for some people. And Shawn Michaels in 1996, he wasn't a character. He was just a dude, just like Bret Hart was. Undertaker's a character, Kane is a character, uh Nikki Cross is a character because she's playing the part of somebody who's like a little deranged and that kind of a thing. But Alexa Bliss isn't really. You know what I mean? Like I kind of get that kind of distinction between them. Velveteen Dream is a character.
And a good one at that.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, somebody like Mandy Rose is a character because she's like the stuck-up, vain, hot bitch type of thing. But I'm not getting the character vibe out of Ember Moon, because what is she supposed to be? She's the Shenom. Okay, well that's the same as calling yourself the Phenomenal One, and AJ Styles is not a character. You know?
I think they wanted to give her a character, but it would have been something more along the lines of like kind of dorky in like a Dungeons and Dragons sense. But they're not gonna build up the character like that on the main roster.
No, she's not like some half wolf, half wrestler type thing or something. Like she's got no character. She's got like gear. Yeah, like that's like about it.
She's hot, is what she is in that movie.
Marco asks, how would we integrate chess into a gimmick match? And to be honest, I don't know how to play chess. Never learned.
I used to. I don't know as much anymore. I feel like Callum would help here. I'm gonna take the easy way out and just say, well, man, wrestling's already the human game of chess, so you see it integrated every day.
My idea was to somehow incorporate that into some kind of like Survivor Series team where you've got an intergender side of things where it's like a main eventer, like a world champion. Like, let's just say we do Raw versus SmackDown. Well, the WWE champion on SmackDown is the King, and the SmackDown Women's Champion is the Queen. And you've got like the mid card champions, the tag team champions. You got like rooks and knights and some extra people that aren't champions. They're the pawns. Like maybe that's the way to do it. Something like that.
And does that mean, like, at any point, if the woman loses, then the match is over? Because you gotta kill the queen.
If that's the way that that works, then yeah, got to protect her out of that. Like I don't know, like
I like
maybe
that
do
idea.
that.
So it's kind of like a captain's fall match, but with the female being the captain.
Yeah, and you could
Oh,
do like the black team against the white team, and have people decked out as like that they're wearing matching gear. Like call it the checkmate match.
I like it.
There you go. I just didn't get that kind of on the fly. Let's see. The other question from Marco: what random legend or superstar do you want to win the 24/7? His pick is Rob Van Dam. I thought of a couple, and I thought to myself I shouldn't think of this too much because then I'll end up having a list of like 400 names. But the three that came to my mind most of all were Jerry the King Lawler. I figured he's the type of person who can come in, punch somebody, win, lose, and it's not going to be like, you made him look like a jobber because he lost real quick. They've never given a belt to Jerry the King Lawler. Why not have him do that? Shawn Michaels hits a sweet chin music on somebody, pins him. Something else happens and he gets pinned. You know. But more than anybody, JBL would be perfect.
I would bring back Santino for this one.
If he could do that, yeah.
I really, as good as R-Truth is and as annoying as Santino was, this title was made for Santino. And he would have had so much fun. And I think it would have made his character more refreshing because as for everything we want to say about the real in-depth PG era of like 2010, 2011, they did not have a lot of creative freedom like this. This title gives creative freedom. You can be playful. And I think that above all else is the importance of this title. It allows for the playing around of characters backstage because for a while we didn't get that. You know, like, think about it. When's the last time we really had, they're fighting backstage and there's chaos backstage. Backstage nowadays, it's usually a robotic promo or Braun Strowman's flipping a vehicle.
Yeah, a lot of the time it's that. Where
By the way,
it's,
Braun Strowman would make a great 24/7 champion.
I'm still saying one of the best storylines that they can do with this is you give it to a Braun Strowman or a Samoa Joe, but I think Braun Strowman's the best for this. And people can't beat him. And he's like, this R-Truth thing running around and stuff, like that's kind of fun, but it's already kind of playing itself out. But imagine having a guy that's the 24/7 champion and he is perfectly fine with a champion, a challenger coming up at any point. And people like a Drake Maverick can come up and challenge him backstage and he just fucking power slams him and he's like, nope. Like, just, he's 24/7 champion because he's able to keep holding on to that. And you keep that there for 3 months, something like that. I
How
think that'd
long
be kind
until
of
we
neat.
see the title defended on an episode of Ride Along?
Fuck it, do that, like, that'd be kind of fun. I still am waiting for Corey Graves to, like, get out of or Byron Saxton, because Byron Saxton doesn't have any kind of, like, health issues as far as I'm concerned. Or, not concerned, as far as I'm aware. As far as I know, fucking whatever, like, that'd be kind of fun to have somebody, like, get laid out. They're the 24/7 champion, and you start seeing that a bunch of people are running backstage to be like, oh, I want to go run to the ring and go get that guy. And somebody like Byron Saxton's like, oh, fuck, I'm right here. I could get to him before anybody else. Just runs into the ring and pins him. And then it's like, yeah, I'm the champion. Oh, crap, I can't do commentary because then everybody is going to know that I'm on commentary. So now I leave the commentary booth and run around. And then people are like, all right, well, we're down one commentator. Like, there's a lot of fun that they can have with this. And I think if you can have some random people pop up and have, like, the Godfather win the title at one point, drop it by the end of the night, why not?
Yeah, and again, I'm all for the playfulness. I think a lot of people are harping on the fact that it's so random and it looks and sounds and everything that we know about it so far just feels like they woke up one day and were told we need a fun championship like the hardcore title. So they had a fly-by-night company create a belt for $100 and said, "Hey Mick, come wear this title out to the ring and lay it in the ring, and we'll just do an XFL scramble." Everything about it seems so thrown together in 5 seconds,
Yeah.
but it's good. What they're doing with it, and for that matter, what they're doing with Raw. The third hour being less lights, darker graphics, the weird electric chair thing, which bombed but has potential. They're trying. And I think that is going to be the overall message in 5 years. Hey, remember when this started because they were trying? It's kind of like, look at Goldust. Goldust was one of the first things that started the Attitude Era. Even though nothing else on the show at the time matched that theme, he still kickstarted a lot of it.
See, I can't be super optimistic about some things because I feel like as much as this is an era of trying some things out and all that, and you kind of can't succeed unless you try and fail at the same time. That whole process of eventually they're going to hit something and it's going to work out really well. And it might not be like the savior of the company thing, but it's like they're going to come across some random idea and it's going to be really fun and really cool and really interesting. But in the meantime, those shitty ideas, I hated that electric chair. I thought that was so awful in so many
Now, is
ways.
this Corey Graves segment? Is this something that it's supposed to be the fans segment? What is this?
I don't think that they have any idea. But I think that they took the idea that they had done before, which didn't work out well. So I don't know why you would want to go back to that well again. But that whole thing with Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks and Bailey, and it's like we're gonna get questions from the crowd, and you're gonna say the things that are gonna set us up with whatever.
See, but
If
that's why
they,
I don't think the AEW line wasn't scripted, because it seems like, yeah, if I was being real and the crowd hit me with those lame ass questions, I'd go, "You could have literally asked me what I think about AEW, and this is what you hit me with." Like, I liked it. I think it got the job done, but I don't know. It'll probably go away and never be seen again. Wouldn't be surprised.
it wouldn't shock me at all if next week we get another one of them, and they just happen to have better plants in the crowd that can deliver their lines better, and they're just as awful, if not worse.
Hmm.
Just like they've got somebody's kid and they are told, all right, you need to ask Sami Zayn, uh, what do you think of whatever the local town is? I don't know where they're going next week or whatever, but like, say they're in like Pittsburgh and be like, what do you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers? And then for him to be like, oh, Pittsburgh teams suck, boo. And then it's like, okay, well, we worked out that these are the 4 questions we want people to ask them, and who backstage can we have ask them these questions, like that kind of. And it's gonna be like, well, what's the point? Why not just have Kayla Braxton just ask them, like, and then you're already kind of defeating the purpose of it, and I don't know, I'm not digging it at all. I think that the 24/7 title has some potential, but right now all they're doing with it is just, wouldn't it be kind of funny if R-Truth ran around backstage? And that's like, if you can figure out a way to make it funny, yeah, but
Has Carmella beat him for the title yet?
no, but she
She's
totally
going
has
to.
to.
She's going to.
She absolutely has to. It's just like, that needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen, who is writing it? You
Yeah,
know?
then they failed. If you don't do Carmella pinning R-Truth on a roll up, like even if she's out there managing him and just like slides into the ring after a double clothesline and pins him, she's the 24/7 champion, and you're missing an easy mark if you don't go there.
So let's move on to Frank Flesher's questions. There's been a rumor going around that Becky Lynch is going to have a big match at WrestleMania 36, but it won't involve Charlotte, Ronda, or Stephanie. Do you have any predictions on who her opponent could be? And do you guys have anybody that you would want her to be facing? I can't think of anybody who would be left that would be a big enough name that would make any sense to me.
At this point, it's got to be Trish.
That's one of the names that I had written down. I was like, if it's not Trish or Lita,
then it's Nikki Bella, and that might be a hard pill to swallow for some folks. But if you're taking out Charlotte, Ronda, and Steph, and you don't immediately go with Trish and Lita, then the only other big name in the women's division is Nikki.
Unless they were to have this mentality in mind that they would spend an entire year building up Sasha Banks to be somebody, which I don't think that's the case.
That's all and let's be clear, fuck everything we're saying, because June of last year, nobody was thinking Becky Lynch.
Right.
So it could all change at the drop of a hat. But if I had to guess, I'd say, Trish. Based on, consistency. Because Nicole is great, but is she really going to be good to go for WrestleMania? And can you make that a good enough storyline? I don't want to see Stephanie get involved. I'm burned out on that. So yeah, my personal preference would be Trish.
I know that I caught a little bit of flack when I had said before, is Becky Lynch still as much of a thing as she was before? Because I honestly, I do think that she's lost a lot of steam, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Becky Lynch were still in the discussion around Survivor Series, but I honestly don't think that Becky Lynch is going to be the biggest priority going into WrestleMania next year. I think it's going to be Brock. And we're just going to go back to the way that things have been beforehand. So,
and this was my fear when they main evented with the women. It almost happened immediately. Right away, things went back to normal because we're not just going to change everything overnight, and it's not like the women are always going to be the biggest thing.
Right.
And people said, oh my god, they fucked the women's revolution, and they don't care about the women, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't get that.
I mean, that's where some people just, they can't realize that progress doesn't mean everything switches on a dime and then it's just a complete reversal of what everything was. It took a couple years, even in the women's evolution, whatever you want to call it, but they got to the point where they main event at WrestleMania. That's literally the peak that they can go with.
And they themselves literally said, the evolution is complete. We're done. Not we're done here, we're going back to divas, but we no longer need to shove this down your throat. We've completed the evolution. They main evented Mania.
Yeah, it's that's kind of the way that, I'm bringing it back to another movie thing, kind of the way that the MCU works. We just had Avengers Endgame. It's the end of an arc. It's not the end of the series. It's not the end of the franchise. It's not like you're never going to see Doctor Strange again, or that you're never going to see... I mean, Thor is even going to continue going forward. But we're not going to have Iron Man, and we're not going to have Captain America, and we're not going to have Black Widow, and we're not going to have Hawkeye, and we are going to have Hawkeye do a little bit, but that's the end. If that would have been the very last thing, and they would have said, you know what, we're not going to make any more movies, then that would have been the end. But it isn't, so things are going to continue. It's just a matter of, we reached an end point. And that was an end point for the women's revolution, where we got to that level. Now everything is more on that 50-50 type of thing. At any point, at any pay-per-view in the future, if the women's match is the most entertaining thing going into it, it can main event it. Because it main event in WrestleMania. So you can have the main event of Survivor Series be the women's tag match. Or you can have the main event of NXT TakeOver 25 be Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai. It's just, at this point, it's all on the table. And next year, I would bet so much money that they are not having Becky Lynch main event WrestleMania next year. I would bet pretty much everything that I have. I might be wrong.
Can I make a hot take and say it doesn't matter as much anymore?
Oh,
If
it
this year
doesn't.
proved anything, the main event of WrestleMania doesn't mean shit. Like, I would have rather had them go on at 9 o'clock when the crowd was still hot.
I think
And
if they wouldn't have gone on the main event, it still wouldn't have been a big deal because they needed to do it just for the sake of saying that they did it. But if you were not looking at it through the scope of I was technically the headlining act and that means that I'm the best, you just want to have like the best segment, you shouldn't go on in the main event. If you want to have the best
yeah,
segment of the night, you should go on at like the 9 o'clock main event or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? So if Becky Lynch is still a priority next year, which she might not be, I mean, injuries can happen too. Becky Lynch could get some kind of a weird fucking ankle injury in November and be out
and be
WrestleMania.
out for a year. Like,
You never know what's going to happen with that. Or since we didn't know that Becky Lynch a previous year ago, she's wrestling in the Battle Royal and she makes it to the main event of WrestleMania, who knows if Nikki Cross is going to just get like real fucking popular, or if there's going to be like that right little thing is going to trigger with Carmella and she's going to be the thing again, or you know, you never know. But
you literally don't know. We could be talking about, my God, Dana Brooke is such a compelling character, and that might be a joke to some of you, but
it
look
could
at
happen.
Becky Lynch. This is a fact. This wasn't happening. Kofi Kingston wasn't happening. Dean Ambrose being in AEW wasn't happening. If this year has taught you anything, it's that anything is possible.
I would say though, I could imagine a scenario happening where right now it wouldn't shock me if their plan is Lacey Evans versus Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch versus maybe Shayna Baszler as like the better match of the two, kind of. But if not that, if they had a plan in mind of what they were going to do with like a big, super awesome, amazing headlining match, I really can't think of anybody other than maybe Trish. Because Nikki Bella, it's like, all right, that's going to work out for you, but it's not going to be the same as like the Ronda Rousey thing. And you can't do Becky and Charlotte again. They went to that so many times. I can't imagine them looking at anybody on the roster right now and thinking that like they're going to spend the next year building up somebody to be that big of a match. Like,
Unless Sasha Banks wins the Royal Rumble.
that's the only thing, is Sasha's the only person who I could see them thinking that they can build up that way. But if she wants to leave the company, then that kind of negates that, you know?
Right.
I can't imagine that they're looking at, as much as I enjoy some of these people, I can't imagine that they're looking at Peyton Royce or Ember Moon or Sonya Deville or whoever else and being like, that's the ticket right now. That's going to be just as big, if not bigger, than the Ronda Rousey match. It's not going to happen like that.
And
You know?
WrestleMania, at this point, I think we can safely say it's almost non-canonical in the way that it functions, in that they just want a big match. They don't even really care about the story to get to said match, because that's why we didn't have a SmackDown Women's title match at WrestleMania this year, and we got a triple threat with both titles, because that was the biggest match they could provide, rather than let's put a sensible storyline together for another match. And I don't know if it'll still be Becky Lynch. I think it has to be, in the sense that Stone Cold, for as long as he was hot, main evented every WrestleMania. So Becky's hot, so she at least has to be in the discussion. But who is there on that other side? And that's kind of the overall problem with wrestling right now.
What if their plan is to go into this whole the man thing and their idea is an intergender match?
You know,
Because that's something that we hadn't really like incorporated as far as like looking at the list and being like, okay, these people are the only like this woman and this woman. What if that's their plan? Is they just say, our big idea for Becky Lynch next year is the man against a man of some kind, her against
What do
Seth Rollins, or her against fucking Brock Lesnar. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you know, I'm with that idea. I like that idea.
I don't. I hate it.
I like it. If you deal with the right guy, and you make it clear that it's a Big Show Floyd Mayweather level attraction and not the match.
Yeah, that can't be the main event. That would be too much like WrestleMania 11, where it's like, why is Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow the main event?
You see what I mean? You know your shit, as long as we keep it to 1995.
Why did I go back to 1995? I don't even like that year all that much. You know what I mean, though? Like, that could be the scenario that I'm thinking. Like, what if they think Becky Lynch versus Shane McMahon next year?
See, for me, it all depends on the man, and I'm so burned out on Shane. I'm shocked at how burned out on Shane McMahon I am. But intergender wrestling is definitely a thing they're considering, because Dean Ambrose on the Talk is Jericho podcast today, basically, without coming out and directly saying it, said, all right, we want you and Nia at WrestleMania.
I don't know. This is one of those things that I think in a couple months we're going to have a different idea of where their thought process is, and then a couple months later it's going to change again, and then come February it's going to be completely different. Like,
because there's no better example of that than Kofi.
Yeah, there was
Kofi
absolutely
Kingston
no
was not
way.
the fucking guy.
No, there was no way in hell that was even like their 8th option. I guarantee that wasn't the case. And it worked out really well because Kofi Kingston getting that was like the best part of WrestleMania, and I'm digging Kofi as champion right now. I like it.
Yeah, he's very compelling.
More so than Seth Rollins, I would argue.
I feel bad for Seth. I equated Seth to a 1996 Shawn Michaels, where it's like, all right, you've got the women main eventing Mania, and that's almost like ECW, and you've got AEW, which is basically like the birth of the NWO, and even Kofi is kind of like this even bigger underdog story. Seth is great, and he's the guy, but there's so many other things happening that this doesn't mean what it should.
Yeah. I was kind of confused about this question a little bit. Frank asks, in the spirit of Money in the Bank, if there ever a time where someone stole the briefcase from its rightful owner to try to cash in, who do you think would do such a thing from past or present? How did you interpret this? I interpreted it as basically, who do you think would have been a good idea to take the briefcase from one of the other previous Money in the Bank winners?
So, yeah, I think Edge and Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it.
So, but does he mean, like, from any situation, like if I could change it from Del Rio winning to somebody beats Del Rio, would I do that? And my instant thought would be, I think you take the belt, the briefcase from Sandow and you give it to Cody. But of course that changes the entire course of events and we don't get where we are today. But Cody was hot that year.
That makes sense.
Specifically in that match. He was hot and they didn't go with him. I would also say, don't put it on Sheamus. Put it on Cesaro. What was the year that... Oh no, he wasn't... The year that Cesaro was with Heyman, he was in the world title ladder match, right? Because I was going to say, like, Cesaro would have been a good fit when he was with Heyman, but they never pulled that trigger because Cesaro is one of those guys, isn't he? Where they want to pull the trigger and then they never do.
I think that the Cody Rhodes Sandow thing is the one that stands out the most to me from my memory too, because it's hard to remember like who else was really hot around the time that like Baron Corbin won. Or I'm not the biggest fan of Alberto Del Rio, but it made sense for him to win it because he was a top guy. But I never would have liked that, so maybe that year would have been a year that I wanted Bad News Barrett to win, or like different scenarios like that. I'm sure that if I really could sit down and really think about it, I could come up with a bunch. But yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that Sandow thing, because that feud made a lot of sense that they could have been feuding over that. And then Cody doing that, cashing in, and maybe if you didn't want him to actually win, maybe Sandow costs him his Money in the Bank thing as being like, you stole the Money in the Bank from me, I'm going to steal the title shot away from you. Like, they could have done something like that.
hindsight being 2020, Cena beats Ziggler and then goes on to cash it in and unify the titles at Mania with The Rock. Because they were going there later that year anyway. To do it at Mania would have been a bigger deal, especially with those two guys.
That would have been kind of cool.
And that's coming from somebody who can acknowledge that Ziggler's cash-in was a huge pop and probably the biggest thing he'll ever do. But I think that would have had more staying power than anything else that actually happened.
Cena beats Big Show instead of Del Rio.
Yeah, like
and then Ryback because we always did the whole thing where it's like Ryback should have beaten Big Show, won that, but maybe
they didn't go anywhere with Ryback anyway.
Yeah,
so
they
don't worry
didn't do
about
that.
Yeah, just go, and the Del Rio Swagger feud was a bust. So just go ahead and unify the belts. Christian Cena as the guy, so that he can start his part-time career in 2 months. Like,
Del Rio and Swagger could have had a regular match, or they could have been fighting for like the mid
they
card
could have had
titles.
a flag match.
Yeah, could have done something like that.
That's
let's
a
see
fun
what else.
question, though.
I had written down here if it was a matter of like people taking the briefcase away from each other and stuff like that. Back when it looked like it was just a normal briefcase, I think it would have been kind of funny if somebody would have swapped it unknowingly with another one that looked identical. Like, imagine Edge. It wouldn't have worked with Edge, but like that briefcase, it was literally a briefcase. There wasn't any Money in the Bank logo on it. There wasn't anything else like that. Imagine he goes to cash in and they open it up, and on the inside, it's just like Lionel Hutz's briefcase where it's got like an apple and like, whatever. And they just like, what the hell? The contract thing isn't in here. And it's like, well, yeah, you're not cashing in a briefcase. You're cashing in the contract that's inside of the briefcase. Meanwhile, backstage, somebody else, some kind of switch act swapped it out, and they have the possession of the Money in the Bank briefcase. That's like the real one. Can't do it anymore. Because why would they have another replica of the briefcase that looks exactly the same and stuff? But maybe that could have been an interesting way. But yeah, I agree with the Sandow and Rhodes thing. I think that one stands out the most.
And I don't know what year, but I might have held off on one of the Punk victories. Maybe the first one, because he didn't do much with it. Maybe I would have given that to like a...
Wasn't that the one that was supposed to go to Hardy?
It was supposed to go to Hardy, yeah.
So I think that they just kind of did that on a fly and just went like, Punk's kind of like Hardy. That kind of thing.
Yeah, and it was all about having a babyface win it.
I'd be cool with Brock Lesnar losing this one. I don't know who he'd lose it to.
It has to mean something. And by God, and I'll say it again, credit to him. He's done more with the briefcase than I thought he would. I legit thought, all right, so Heyman will just be randomly walking around backstage occasionally with a briefcase. Brock has made this briefcase his thing.
I still hate it.
I know.
I hate where it's going to end up going. It's just... Let's go to Michael Patrick's question. What would be your personal wrestling hell? For example, mine would be watching the never-ending Iron Man match between Great Khali and Giant Gonzalez, and I have to watch it sitting next to Leo Rush while he chants Lashley, Lashley, for no reason for all eternity. That sounds pretty awful. My biggest pet peeve with wrestling is really, really bad, quote-unquote, comedic segments that aren't in the slightest bit funny and go on forever and ever and ever. So my gut reaction to this more than anything was I remembered that Hornswoggle courtroom segment, just looping
Ah,
that, but on top of it, attaching the fan response of everybody loving it and bitching and complaining that I don't enjoy anything because I disagree.
I would definitely lump the fans into my personal wrestling hell.
Isn't that
Where,
bad?
yeah, no, it's the guy mentioned Iron Man match, and I immediately thought, okay, so one of my personal wrestling hells would be an Iron Man match with the fans just going ah, and, and like it's just so bad. But my biggest wrestling pet peeve is when I'm super into a match and it has a fuck finish. So like somebody comes out and gets involved, or it ends in a DQ. So like my hell would be an endless supply of matches that I really, really want to see. Like let's say Shawn Michaels in his prime versus Ric Flair in his prime, but it always ends. You never get a proper finish.
Always as a DQ because somebody came out to attack him.
Yes, and also it's an Iron Man match, and the fans are going, ah! Like, and he's not here, but I'll answer for Callum. Callum's wrestling hell is having to sit there with a megaphone up to his ear as Michael Cole shouts, "It's boss time," over and over and over again as he disintegrates into nothingness.
While watching, I don't know, Dolph Ziggler against Diesel or something.
Oh no, yeah. It's gotta be like while watching Dolph Ziggler win the championship, and meanwhile Michael Cole is shouting, "It's Dolph time!" into Callum's ear.
Let's move to Peter's questions. Did you guys watch the finale in Gotham, and do you want to see a Batman spin-off series? I watched the
Uh,
finale, and I do not want them to do anything else because I thought that Gotham sucked.
I didn't hate Gotham as much as you did, but I'll agree that this finale was weird. I didn't like the stuff that they did with the Joker. That he's Jerome, but he's not Jerome, but he's the Joker, but we can't say it because we don't own it, so he's technically not. Uh, it was too convoluted for me, but I did enjoy the series at the start. Would I want to see a Batman spinoff? No, because I think I've had my fill of this. I'm glad superheroes are more mainstream now, but I've had my fill of, hey, look, we got Batgirl on the CW, and we've got, uh, was it Black Lightning?
Yeah.
And, Arrow and Flash, and there's just too much of it going on. And as we've seen with wrestling, there can be too much of a good thing.
I just think that if something is good, then it's good, and if it isn't, then it isn't. And I have no interest in Batwoman. Batman is my favorite character of anything that's ever existed for anything. And the Bat family has so much potential, but the Bat family that has the potential is about 5, 6 people. I mean, you can kind of extend it to maybe like 8, because if you count like Alfred and Lucius and Commissioner Gordon, like if they're part of the Bat family in your mind, then yeah. I like Damian Wayne. I think Dick Grayson is such an underrated character in so many ways, but Dick Grayson works as a Bruce Wayne supporting character. I don't want like a Batgirl TV show because Barbara Gordon is so good, such a good character, but Batgirl cannot hold her own series. Just like Tim Drake can't hold his own series. And Batwoman to me is one of those examples of just like a gimmick that is stupid. It's just, hey, what if there was like, if there's a Batman, what if there's a Batwoman? And why don't we make her a lesbian because that's kind of interesting in this time frame, and then maybe they will get attention that way. And then it's like, I know where you're going here. You're not going for, I've got a great idea of a series. You've got a pitch, and that's it. So Black Lightning becomes, why don't we have a story about a black family of superheroes? more so than it is, I really like the Black Lightning character, why don't we do a show about him? And you can tell with Arrow that they didn't really care about Green Arrow. They wanted to make a Batman show, but they didn't have access to Batman, so they were like, why don't we make a Green Arrow show in the vein that we wanted to make a Batman one? So when you get Krypton out there, I don't give a shit about whatever the fuck Clark Kent's great-grandfather or whatever he is. Jor-El is the interesting one, and I don't want a Jor-El's TV show, because I want a Superman TV show, you know? Like, so the way that Gotham worked, where they did this whole, like, the pitch of Gotham was originally a Gotham City Police Department show. And I remember hearing this buzz that they were going to do GCPD was going to be the name of it. And they were going to make it Law and Order, but from the scope of a Batman series. And I was like, man, that would be so cool if you do a cop drama where it's Renee Montoya and Harvey Bullock and Crispus Allen and these characters that actually have like characterization in the Batman series. And Commissioner Gordon, of course, is like the commissioner. And you just never really see Batman because it's like the story is the cops dealing with the insanity of what Gotham is and the fact that their greatest ally in this whole thing is this lunatic in a fucking bat costume that they don't even, half of them don't believe is real. That's such a cool show. And then it turns into, wouldn't it be kind of fun if like the Riddler was actually already the Riddler and Batman's like 9 years old and he's just like, it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? So I don't trust these showrunners to do a show. And I would love to see a real Batman show, but they can't half-ass it. It can't be a Batman show that has no Batman, unless that's the gimmick of it. It can't be a Batman show where you can't call him Batman, or like, well, we've only got access to a couple of the villains, or... And that's what's wrong with DC. DC does this whole embargo thing, and you don't get all the characters, and that's why a Superman show isn't going to work, and that's why a Wonder Woman show wouldn't work, because they wouldn't have access to all the characters, and that's the problem. So it's like, nope, give me different showrunners and give me a different Batman show, and I'll check it out. But that Alfred Pennyworth show, why are we having a show about the backstory of Alfred? The backstory of Alfred is he used to be in the British Secret Service or something along those lines. And that's kind of interesting. He comes across the Waynes. Batman's born. There you go. Yeah.
Well, we can all agree Titans is a good show.
There's some elements that are good.
My thing is this, and I've said this to you ad nauseum. You can do so much more with animation. Go with an adult animated series about Batman or Superman or any other superhero, and you've got a winner. And I think that is a market that somebody should shoot for.
Yeah. Because that's a lot easier to do. And that's why you get something like the Justice League show was amazing.
Young Justice is good.
Yeah, Young Justice is good. They've got a lot of problems with like their scheduling and pacing, and that they love this idea of let's do a show where the next season is like a 5-year jump, and you're like, well, what the hell? Now I got to catch up to everybody for the next 5 episodes. Like, that's a problem, but fundamentally, like, that show is super interesting, and I want to see more stuff like that. I want to see people have good ideas that are beyond the pitch. And they could hire me if they want me to, because I could do it.
You know, I'm doing the thing again.
The thing is, here's the thing.
I would love to see an adult animated Batman, and by the way, I want Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill to be the voice of Batman and the Joker from now until the day I die. So, give me that, DC.
If you're wanting those kind of things, check out the ones that are the true DC animated movie kind of thing that they've been doing. Those tend to be pretty good. Like, God, I'm blanking on his name. Like, you can tell by the cast which ones are continuing on. It's not Bruce Greenwood, because Bruce Greenwood did the other thing. Jason something or other, I think, is the one that voices Batman. those are ones are like the animation is good and they keep things serious.
Under the
And
Red Hood,
well, that one's
The
not a
Dark
part
Knight
of it.
Returns.
That one's not a part of it either.
Oh, you mean the Bat Family ones,
Like how
like
they
Bad
recently
Blood
that they
and
recently did the Death and Return of Superman.
yes,
Like those ones, those are pretty quality stuff.
and that's what we need. We need adult animated superhero series.
And put it on the DC streaming platform, and there you go.
Yeah.
Another Peter question: do you think that AEW needs to separate itself from Starcast? I think fans buy tickets to shows because they think a CM Punk, Undertaker, Kurt Angle, or insert legend will show up. Yes and no. I kind of feel like AEW needs to either go like full force about the idea of like, I guess they could go all in if you want to call it that. That it's like, okay, Starcast is going to be this thing that happens with all these AEW shows, and we're actually partnered up with them. Or they need to say, like, look, Starcast is a completely different thing, and we're not going to have this happen before AEW shows. We're going to have it at random times throughout the year.
It makes sense to pair them up together. I think if you do not understand at this point that they are separate entities, then you're just not listening to the constant reminders that they're separate entities. They're partnered up because it makes the most sense. They're cornering the same market. So, why would you want to have a Starcast during SummerSlam weekend or during a weekend that doesn't gather as many core wrestling fans? All Elite Wrestling has that market, and Starcast works hand in hand. Do I think that it makes more people believe that Undertaker is going to AEW? Yeah, unfortunately, as we've seen in comment sections, but that ultimately falls down to the person not paying attention to what's being told to them.
Yeah, but if you keep having Starcast always exist right before an AEW show, then they're tied together.
Well, listen, they have Conrad Thompson on their announcing team or whatever, even though he's vehemently denied that he's associated with them, and they themselves have Conrad on their roster page. It's weird. They're obviously in bed together. Cody admitted that Conrad paid for so many talents travel and stuff during All In that Conrad's got a lot of money, and he's probably, I don't want to assume that he's invested into AEW, but he might be. We don't know. We just know that they seem to be working very closely together.
So here's a bunch of questions that I'm not going to be able to chime in much on. Peter asked, and I'm just going to actually read these all out in one shot, kind of. Do you watch Dark Side of the Ring? That's the first thing. I haven't seen it, but you have, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, so that already takes care of that one. But he says on episode 2, Jim Cornette said that he wants to outlive Vince Russo so he could piss on his grave. And
there's a T-shirt that he's selling that says "Determination is a powerful thing" or something like that, and it's a picture, like a drawing of him pissing on Vince Russo's grave.
That's awful and amazing at the same time. He said, "Do you want to actually have Jim outlive Russo?" Knowing that, and it's like, well,
yes,
kind of. I mean, I personally have no issue with Vince Russo. Like, I've never met the guy and whatever, but I don't know if anybody actually ever has pissed on anyone's grave after saying some kind of a comment like that. And if there ends up being like a YouTube video of that, then that's kind of funny, He also says, what would you like to see covered on Dark Side of the Ring? I since I haven't seen it, I don't know what they've done, so I don't know what they haven't done.
Benoit should be covered on Dark Side of the Ring, I think.
That's what his suggestion is. The fall, a death of Eddie Guerrero, have like people talk about Benoit's death, that kind of thing.
The steroid trial, the Vince McMahon sexual harassment lawsuits would all be very interesting. I'm sure they'd get vetoed so quick. But at least the Benoit one, if you're going to do a true Dark Side of the Ring. Could we've gotten a few bits and pieces, but we never really heard the full story of, like, this guy supposedly was told when he was still wrestling that he only had a year to live.
What about just like a overarching idea of everything that's awful that happened in ECW. Like the drug use and the payment stuff, and because they do
I
this whole
think
thing where it's like, oh, the untold truth of ECW, and you hear a lot about like Tommy Dreamer is the one who shut off the lights and whatever, but WWE is not going to have a thing where people are actually like, yeah, New Jack was doing coke before this match, or like different things.
because I don't think they see that as a bad thing.
Oh, that's bad.
I think that was seen as like it was still wrestling, like this is what you do. You're gonna fuck a whore in the bathroom, and meanwhile over there, New Jack is doing coke. I don't actually know if New Jack did coke, but
yeah, I don't know.
let's go with it.
It made sense in my head.
So these things weren't seen as bad, at least not like they would be to today's extent, where now it's like you don't even hear about that kind of extreme drug usage. It's mostly weed, and even weed now is whatever,
And
I
Peter's
would love
last
to
one.
hear.
Okay.
Oh, we were filming, up, up, down, down, and there was like a drug raid, and there was all this coke confiscated. Like that would be interesting to me. The whole Paige thing, it sucks for her, but that was really random to be like, oh hey, here's this video of Paige and Xavier Woods
And Brad Maddox.
and Brad Maddox.
I want like the left, right story. Everything's twisted around, that kind of thing. He also asked, Scott Hall had said that Bret Hart was in on the Montreal screw job.
I hate this fucking theory. Let me
I
just
don't
shut
buy
this
into
down
it
right
at
now.
all.
I hate this fucking theory. I hate the theories that come out because everyone wants to believe that everything in wrestling is a work. I usually like Vince Russo. Yesterday he tweeted out that WWE and AEW are in bed together and you're getting worked if you don't see it. It's like, holy shit. The amount of paranoia and ridiculousness that exists in this field because nobody can believe that real things happen, even though we have a front row seat to social media and celebrities where we see the crazy real life shit that really happens to these people. And you still can't believe that people would betray each other?
Well, I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead here because one of Frankie's questions was, "Do you think AEW and WWE are secretly working together?" And I think 100%, absolutely not.
But
I see no way that would work out because what benefit would it be for WWE to have a partnership with a completely different company that has a different bankroller and that they don't have a revenue stream to go back to?
I don't understand why these things come up. Like, people cannot imagine a world where WWE doesn't control and monopolize everything.
Yeah, I just think that it's that paranoia, like you said, that nobody. Oh, no, I shouldn't say nobody, because some people obviously just don't care. But I think that there's a portion of wrestling fans that feel that they are too smart to be worked. And if they put out this idea of like, oh, I know that they're working together, just in case there ever is anything that would come along that would say that they'd be like, see, I didn't buy it. I'm the smart one.
Yeah, I'm smarter than you. It's like, I said it a million times going into Double or Nothing. I don't think Moxley's coming. I'll be happy to be wrong, and you know what? I couldn't be happier because today he went on Jericho's podcast. He told some amazing stories about life in WWE, and I'm happy for him, and I'm glad I was wrong. I don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. Do I like getting a prediction right every now and again? Sure. But I don't feel this compulsion to be smarter than you.
And that's the type of thing too that if they pull the wool over my eyes, for instance, like if I found out that the Montreal Screwjob was something that Brett was in on, I'd be like, God damn, you got me. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I like being worked when it's something that I'm like, this has to be the way that they do it, and they pull something out that I never would have imagined that they would have done, and it's super cool. And I'm like, man, that's so great that I was wrong about that, and they actually did something that I didn't expect and whatever. I hate being worked when it's like, we're gonna set up this idea and haha, we got you. We did something completely irrational just for the sake of proving you wrong, and then now it's gonna be garbage because we just wanted to prove you wrong. That type of stuff bugs the shit out of me. But I do not think AEW and WWE are working together. I do not think Bret Hart had anything to do with the Montreal Screwjob. I think it's just that the way that things work out is sometimes very confusing. Like, I do not think that there's a magic bullet that killed JFK. I think that there's a conspiracy, and that it wasn't just necessarily like one lone nut job that did it. But I don't imagine that there's some people that are out there that are like, this bullet was made out of this type of metal that comes from Mars, and it's, it's like, how about it's just happens to be maybe there's another shooter, like, you know what I mean? Like, it is very strange that they were filming during the whole Montreal screw job, but maybe if they weren't filming it, people wouldn't believe that some of those things had happened. It's just sometimes things work out really weird.
I heard this theory for the first time in 2012, and some of the evidence given is, well, he wasn't selling the court case, so how is he going to sell a punch from Bret Hart? And Vince, became the biggest heel, and it all magically worked out. But if you don't think, after watching WWE for however long you've been watching, that this is all just happenstance and they got lucky, then you're not watching. You're going to tell me that you don't buy what Bruce Pritchard says, that Vince McMahon thought he was going to be the biggest babyface ever.
Right.
I buy that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll go back to the John Moxley podcast. He lays out several instances of saying, I'm not happy with this. But yet when he told Vince he was leaving, Vince suddenly says, it's come to my attention that you've been unhappy. I had no idea. Even though he's been told to his face, I'm unhappy. I just think Vince McMahon is a guy who is a master manipulator and can manipulate you to believe whatever he's saying is real. And people are so desperate to be ahead of him that you end up getting worked because you're trying too hard to not believe that this is real.
Now, if, Fyter Fest pops up and Shane McMahon says, I have purchased All Elite Wrestling,
Yeah.
then I'll be like, all right, fuck, there's something to this. But no, not the case. Let's go to Frankie's other questions, though. He says, what other NXT alumni do you want back in NXT? We just saw that this past week, Tyler Breeze is back in there, so that's good. EC3 has done jack shit since being on the main roster.
NXT. I have to admit, even NXT dropped the ball with him. EC3.
They did, but I think that that's better plan for him, is to go back there.
By the way, Ambrose tells a great story about EC3. You got to listen to that podcast, guys. The Talking Jericho podcast. It tells a lot of stories. What NXT superstar would I like to see go back to NXT? Now, I'm surprised that this hasn't happened already. The Ascension.
That was on my list because they're not doing anything on the main roster, and maybe they can at least help out with the NXT crew as being like a tag team that can put other people over or something.
And they were so over. Let's not gloss over this. They were so hot. The whole yeah. Remember how big that was?
Yeah.
They dropped the ball with that.
You got a built-in feud too that you can just have the Ascension goes back down and somebody calls him out and says oh, you're back down here. What is it? The Descension? And then you could do the whole thing with them being I have to work my way back up through the developmental thing because we suck,
Yeah, and then they fucking do it, and all of a sudden you've got great matches between the Ascension and the Undisputed Era.
Yeah. Killian Dane going back down is a rumor.
All of them. I want all of Sanity back in NXT.
Well, we do have, spoiler alert for something, but I don't think anybody's really going to care. Alexander Wolf is in NXT UK.
Which is a shame. They haven't shown Eric Young outside of the 24/7 scramble.
Yeah.
since I don't know when. Like, why isn't Eric Young being utilized? Now, I take that back. I know that they used Sanity going into WrestleMania with Shane and The Miz, but they dropped the ball. And
That's where I
there's
think
so many
Killian
names.
Dane going back down and getting like repackaged and stuff, I think that'll help him.
Here's an unpopular name to say, I'm sure. Asuka. Fucking Asuka was untouchable. You made her too vulnerable. You made her too weak. Um, I had another name, Bo Dallas, too. You
Yeah,
know,
I could see that.
there so many guys who have come up to to the main roster need to just go back down to NXT.
Curtis
And
Axel, I think more so than Bo Dallas, because I think at this point Bo Dallas is already written off. Like he's never going to be anything. He's never going to be even like Intercontinental Championship level or anything like that. He's just been a joke from the very start. But Curtis Axel, I think that there's potential that you can have him go to NXT. And how old is he? He's like probably mid-30s, late 30s, something
probably
like that.
something like that.
I could see him being like a 37 or something like that. I don't know. I could see a good story being that Curtis Axel's like, look, I got a lot to give as a trainer. I got a lot of like family history that I haven't tapped into and whatever. And I feel like NXT is a spot for me to really kind of like get back in touch with like the roots of what it is to be a guy who's starting out and maybe bring him out there as more of like a baby face who kind of taps into his dad's legacy a little bit more. Like, give him outfits that look a little bit more like what Mr. Perfect had. Don't give him like the exact same singlet and stuff like that because it's not going to work out. But like, maybe do a little nod to it in a certain extent, and have him be the type of guy that's like this veteran that's in NXT, and that I think could be the saving grace of his career. Because otherwise, he's just going to be a comedic jobber forever.
Look at Tyson Kidd. Tyson Kidd went back to NXT, and it did wonders for his career.
Yeah.
Cesaro went back down for a minute, and it did wonders for his career. Uh, Emma,
Fandango, I think, has a chance for that kind of a thing.
yeah, go back down as Johnny Curtis. I know he said he wanted to do more serious stuff. Emma went down to NXT. It revitalized her career for a minute. Dana Brooke should absolutely go back down.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that what's Tyler Breeze is there. Who else would I say? I don't know. There's a lot of names, but the one that immediately sprung to mind was the Ascension because they went from being the hottest to just nothing at all.
The
It's
hottest to the
wrong.
nottest.
It's wrong. It's 100% dead fucking wrong.
Frankie asks, do you think Chris Jericho should be the first AEW champion for name value alone?
100% yes. Absolutely. And you can make an argument that it'll mean more for Adam Page. It would have meant more for Kenny Omega. But I think Chris Jericho being the first ever All Elite Wrestling Champion, first of all, it puts the cherry, or maybe the fifth cherry, on top of what is already a stellar career. And it legitimizes the brand because here's Chris Jericho, the guy who beat The Rock in Austin in the same night. Of course he's the first ever AEW champion. And you can't say that he's not in the best position in his career. And I know that sounds shocking to some, but Chris Jericho is being treated like a 29-year veteran. And that is exactly what he is. He's a guy who has been to WCW, WWE, ECW, and for whatever reason doesn't always get treated like the star that he is. But this is absolutely the perfect guy to put the belt on.
I see an argument for why you would give it to Page because he instantly is made by being the first champion. But I'd lean more towards Jericho too because I mean, I don't know how their booking strategy is, but I could see this happening. Chris Jericho's got a match with Kenny Omega in New Japan, and Kenny Omega wins. Chris Jericho has a match with Kenny Omega in AEW, and Chris Jericho wins. They're 1-1. At some point, there's going to be a rubber match. Jericho's doing this whole thing where he is the notoriety that's bringing everything to the table, where it's kind of like, there wouldn't be an AEW without me, and I'm the reason you got a TV deal, and I'm the reason for this. If you want to buy into that the most, you make him the champion. Because he's the guy that's like, look, I'm even the champion. Like, you owe everything to me. And he's a top heel and whatever. You have him beat Adam Page. You have him beat whoever the fuck, Michael Nakazawa, whoever you, I don't know why that name popped into my mind the first thing.
Because it's an amazing name.
It's fun to say, Michael Nakazawa. You have him beat these people, and you build up this idea that by the time you reach to, I don't know, maybe they're like February event or something like that, that Kenny Omega has earned his way into a title shot, and they have the rubber match, and it's for the title, and Kenny Omega wins, and he's the second champion. You got your babyface champion who beat Jericho. He's more than capable of being that champion, and I think that's the way to go about it. And Page's time will come. Whether he's the guy after Omega or the guy after Omega or whatever.
Even though there's a definite argument for why you should do this, I wouldn't do Jericho then Moxley. Because then it just seems like you're giving it to former WWE guys. If you go Jericho, then Page, or even Page, then Moxley, and you work your way over to Jericho, then you know what? Cool. But don't do one WWE guy after the other.
I say you go Jericho, Omega, either MJF or Moxley, and then Page.
And we don't even know. We haven't even established whether or not AEW will be a company who will be doing 5-year title reigns.
Yeah, Jericho could hold this title until 2022 or something like that. I don't think it'll be the case, but
we know that that's a popular thing in New Japan, and they take a lot out of New Japan, so we'll see.
Yeah, and you don't know who's going to come in and go out, who's going to be a big deal. I mean, you could get, theoretically speaking, a couple months from now, there could be a giant switch of some people from WWE. You could get some other big-ass names that go in there. It's not the most impossible thing in the world for somebody, even like a John Cena, to want to pop up in AEW,
Isn't that crazy? But, you're really living in a time where I could see that.
Yeah.
I even think, like, if they signed off on it, and I don't know if he's actually got a contract with them, I could see The Rock wanting to just pop up and rock bottom somebody.
I think that's actually one of those things that we're not going to see, but at the same time, hey, if it gets big enough, there's no reason for him not to. It's not like he's under contract with WWE,
And credit to them for creating such a buzz where that's even remotely possible.
Yeah. Frankie asks, where did the Megamaniacs name come from? Well, Smark Out Moment, my side of things, and Payton's Keeping Kayfabe, when we started to team up and we started to do the Raw post show, we needed a name for that, so we ended up going with Mega Powers Radio, because we figured it's kind of like the Mega Powers uniting. It's, Hulk Hogan for Smark Out Moment, Keeping Kayfabe, Randy Savage. We're meeting together. We're having our own group, our own team, that kind of thing. And then we decided we're going to make a Facebook group. And instead of calling it like Mega Powers Radio fans or Smark Out Moment and Keeping Kayfabe fans or something like that, we were like, fuck it, Mega Maniacs. That's where that goes.
So to be clear, it's not that you're such an undying fan of Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake's tag team from 1993, or the WCW name for the Mega Powers being the Mega Maniacs. It just so happens you're like, hey, let's put these two things together, and you will all be the Mega Maniacs.
Yep. None of that Fan Nation stuff. I hate when people use that. Oh, you're the like the Smark Out Moment Fan Nation. Ugh.
The Smark Out Moment universe. What a shitty universe that.
KFC or Popeyes? KFC has better biscuits.
Popeyes,
agree or disagree?
I had Popeyes during a hurricane a couple years back, and it was the most disgusting, salty, like overly salty. Like it looks like they just had chicken and they just poured salt all over it, and it was gross. And potato wedges from KFC are out of this world, so KFC all the way.
See, I haven't had Popeyes more than only a couple times, and I don't remember what their sides tasted like. But I remember specifically thinking to myself, KFC has better biscuits. Because Popeyes were like, you take a bite out of that and you feel like you got to drink a gallon of water just to make sure you're not choking.
Yeah.
I don't remember the mashed potatoes for either of them all that well. Can't really judge that. Can't really judge like the corn or the gravy. Or I know that KFC has terrible mac and cheese.
Yeah.
It's always soft as all hell, and that fake cheese, it doesn't work out. So I kind of remember Popeyes having better mac and cheese, and I kind of remember liking the Popeyes chicken a little better, but neither of the chicken is all that good.
Listen, KFC has potato wedges, biscuits, which are delicious, and popcorn chicken, which I really enjoy.
The popcorn chicken's pretty good.
Popcorn chicken is delicious. I feel like getting KFC. Yeah.
Biscuits and gravy made me a man.
Biscuits and gravy made me all that I am.
Ain't no ham and egger.
Something you've always been. You know who we're talking about.
Yeah, going back in the day for that. Do you think that Vince will fuck over Johnny Gargano when he gets to the main roster? Yeah.
Yeah, because if you go back 2 questions ago when you asked us who would we like to see from NXT go back, I would lovingly tell you everybody. Everybody should go back because they've done nothing. And that's why I don't want to see the Undisputed Era ever go up. Because they've done nothing with so many of the talent. But yeah, I think he would absolutely fuck over Johnny Gargano. And if I'm Johnny Gargano, by the way, I want to stay in the nest of Shawn Michaels and Triple H for the name value alone, let alone all the cool shit you get to do on NXT.
Yeah, and it's got to be a lot easier of a schedule and everything, too. Another question is, where's Buddy Murphy? I guess they just have no idea for him.
I believe he's in Land Down Under, where rivers flow and men plunder.
Look at like the amount of things that they've pushed off to the side recently. When's the last time that you've seen the Viking Raiders?
Oh shit! I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
Oh my god!
Women's tag team titles pushed aside. The Aleister Black side of things, he's just promos right now. There's so many things that they are not focused on right now because all they're focused on is let's do this Shane McMahon Roman Reigns thing. Let's do the Brock Lesnar Money in the Bank thing.
Wild card.
And let's do the wild card rule and let's set up Super Showdown. That's all they're focused on right now.
I think that Aleister Black will become a big deal in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, eventually we're going to have injuries and we're going to have that they're going to change their perspective on things and they're going to bring these people back in. And I feel like Buddy Murphy, by the time we get to Survivor Series, he's going to be a solid mid-carder, but that's kind of why you need a continuity script supervisor. You could kind of keep track of these things. Just saying, and I'm pretty good at it. I got a website for it.
Where the hell's Finn Balor?
They had him on SmackDown say that he wasn't able to compete because of the Money in the Bank ladder match.
So did he forfeit the title?
No, he's just going to probably lose it at Super Showdown.
No, oh, that's right. Wait, isn't Andrade a Raw guy?
No.
No, right? He's a SmackDown guy.
They moved him back over to SmackDown because...
See, I would have remembered that, but the wild card rule made that hard to remember because they're just fucking moving everyone over everywhere.
That just makes it to where it doesn't matter where they are, so it's everybody can be an everybody guy.
I would be pretty upset if Andrade won that title without Zelina there.
Oh, that's right. She's probably not going to be there.
She's not going to be there. She's not advertised.
Huh. Yeah, I think it's going to happen. Then again, we'll get into that when we get into our predictions. By the way, I haven't done any of my other kind of plugs. I've been wanting to like intersperse plugs, and I always fucking forget about it. So, yeah, we did a couple other things about like subscribing and all that other kind of stuff, but follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment. And check out fanboysanonymous.com for everything on the Fanboys Anonymous side of things. Facebook, the Twitter, the YouTube.
And while you're checking out the YouTube, check out the interview that I did with Davey Boy Smith Jr.,
Yeah,
where he talks about Owen Hart, his match with MJF this Saturday, his desires to wrestle Tom Lawler for the MLW World Championship. That's all on the Smark Out Moment YouTube channel. In addition to, coming soon, 2001 Wrestling Odyssey with me
it's
and
already
Cal
up.
Wiggins. It's already up because we recorded it Monday. And yeah, it's a good
Yeah,
listen.
there's a couple other things that are out there. Godzilla's coming up tomorrow, so I get to review that tomorrow night. So that's another thing on Fanboys. But we got two more questions. Oh, I forgot we already did that one. Do you like Aiden English on commentary?
No, I mean, let me backtrack. I'm indifferent.
I like him. Blah, blah, blah. My God, I can't talk. I actually like him better on commentary than I do as a wrestler.
He was good when he sang songs. And I liked the vaudevillian humor. I did. You know, I think they do this thing where they waste talent, but they don't want to let people go, so they disguise it as, well, let's see if you can hack it as a commentator. And let's see if you can be a good agent. And yes, those are useful skills, and that's cool. But at the end of the day, you join the biggest pro wrestling company in the world to wrestle. And sidebar, as I said that, Samu Anawai's got a tribute show tonight in Allentown, Pennsylvania, right? WWE put out this statement, I won't call it a press release, where they said sports entertainment enthusiasts in Allentown, Pennsylvania will get a real treat as WWE superstars go to WXWC4. And the funny thing about that to me, or rather irritating to no end, is so sports entertainment enthusiasts. Really, you couldn't just say wrestling fans for this one time. You had to stretch it out even more, exhaustingly frustratingly. Like,
imagine if every episode of Smack Talk started out with me going, "What's up, sports entertainment enthusiasts?"
I'm gonna hold you to that. Because
welcome to the Weather Report.
That's good. Exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, sports entertainment enthusiasts. That's such fucking ridiculous bullshit.
Well, I like English as a
Sorry,
commentator.
in English is fine. Just I'm so that WWE verbiage really wears on you.
Are we on the final one? Yeah, we're on the final one here. What are your thoughts on White Castle?
All right, White Castle. It's not meant to be good.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Let me start there. But I will go to town on the chicken rings. Like you don't understand. When I read this question yesterday, I immediately craved White Castle chicken rings. And I don't know what the hell that actually is, because chicken in no way, shape, or form forms into a ring. But it's so stupid good. And bad for your health.
I do not know what these chicken rings are. I gotta look them up. They
Go
sound awesome because I love chicken.
Go get an order of chicken rings. I'm sure you're in Jersey. They gotta have a White Castle near you.
They actually don't. Oddly
What?
enough. Yeah, my experience with White Castle has predominantly been the frozen burgers inside, like, ShopRite, Walmart, whatever.
No, you need to go to White Castle. You
I've
need to
only
go to
been
New York.
one time. I've been to White Castle, and it was maybe like the second day that I had come into New York Comic Con, and I was just kind of like, "Yo, I'm in New York. I need to go to fucking White Castle. We need to figure this out." And it was me and a bunch of other people on the crew for We Were Fanboys Anonymous, like Peyton and Sam and Dace and everybody. And everybody but me got sick. And I'm like,
because you're not human. Let's discuss that first of all. You're not human.
Listen, just because this does not calculate, it does not compute, and they got clam strips. I don't think I would trust the clam strips at a White Castle. But these chicken things, I mean, they look like they're awful, but I'd fuck them up.
But they're so good.
Like, you give me a bucket of these things, I'd sit there and chomp away. White Castle's garbage, but sometimes you just kind of want to eat these like sloppy little stupid burgers, and I'm not a fan of any condiments. We've established this in the past, so it's like if they
Condiments
had,
suck.
pickles or if they had ketchup on there, I'm not going to eat it. But the little tiny bits of the onion, like, yeah, a little onion, a little cheese, and the burger. Give me 20 of these things, and I'll keep eating them.
I love a guilty pleasure. Love White Castle because growing up, because you live in New York, you have Burger King down the street, White Castle across that street, KFC not too far away from that. So I was always like, you had your pick of fast food, and as a kid, that is your dream.
See, in my area, I've got within like a 5-10 minute radius, I've got McDonald's, Taco Bell, Boston Market, Burger King, Wendy's, Arby's, Chick-fil-A. I don't think I have a KFC anymore around my area. I don't have a Popeyes anymore, like, close around me. I have a Long John Silver's, but who the fuck's gonna eat that? That's terrible.
I would so have to fight the urge to go to Taco Bell at least once a week and get chicken.
Taco Bell, I think, is technically the closest to me.
I would have to fight that urge to not get a chicken quesadilla every week.
I'm really like what is kind of like a bad idea and it's a good idea at the same time. My Arby's, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Boston Market, and McDonald's are all within a minute of each other. And actually, the Boston Market, the McDonald's, and the Taco Bell are all in the same parking lot. So that's like already kind of like it's tempting if you go to get like fries from Wendy's literally across the street from it, not even in the same parking lot, but across the street is Wendy's. It's like, yeah, give me the chicken nuggets and a burger and fries from Wendy's, and I'm gonna go across the street and get some tacos as well, and then,
why is America one of the most obese countries?
And I really want all of this right now. Like, if I could just eat some Chick-fil-A and some like a crunch wrap or something, like, oh my god, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I could go for a chicken quesadilla, maybe two, and just like, you know what? I'm really craving some White Castle, and it's so bad. It's so bad.
Well, that's it for my my mailbag that I can look at here. So
I'll throw one more question in there. You're a Pokemon guy. You don't sleep. What do you think about Pokemon Sleep?
What's Pokemon Sleep?
It's the next evolution of Pokemon Go, which is going to encourage you to get a good night's sleep.
What? That's what is this?
So like, they're gonna have a Pokeball Plus, which will actually be called, not kidding, the Pokeball Plus Plus, and it will track certain things about your sleeping habits to
I failed this game.
to give you a more fulfilling Pokemon Go experience, or I don't know, something that, listen, the trailer for this thing was Pikachu jumping in your bed. I don't know how this works. I don't know if we're playing with lucid dreaming, but they're tracking the way we sleep, they're tracking our habits, and I'm excited because it's Pokemon, and I like sleep, unlike you.
Snorlax is one of my absolute favorite Pokemon.
Right now, there's a ton of Snorlax all over the place to celebrate the announcement of Pokemon Sleep.
So that's cool. If that has anything to do with it, then hey, neat. I haven't played Pokemon Go since I think I did it for like the first like 2 months.
Well, so did I. I didn't stick with it for too long, but I know for a fact that there are Snorlax out there, and to anyone who's still playing Pokemon Go, kudos to you.
I know quite a bit of people that actually are still doing it.
Cool.
Kind of like they just randomly on like a Saturday afternoon, they're like, "Hey, you want to go like get some Oddish or something?" Like, yeah. But
sounds delicious.
Pokemon Sleep. That sounds really kind of like some offshoot knockoff game or something. Like, I don't know.
Listen, if Pokemon start infiltrating my dreams, I'm just gonna assume Nintendo is controlling all of us.
That would be like Hypno, right? Drowsy and Hypno and Gengar. It's gonna use Dream Eater.
I'm gonna get me a trusty Psyduck.
There you go. Alrighty, everybody. Well, that's the mailbag. The mailbag, I guess you could call it.
You can't help yourself.
I probably make that joke every May, and I don't remember that I do. But fuck it, I'm gonna do it next year probably too. Anyway,
The mailbag is in the bag,
the
and
mailbag. So if you did not send in your questions and you want to pick our brains about something, go ahead and do that for the next one because June will be coming around. That's how months and calendars work. And
are you sure?
yeah, somehow, it's Wednesday somewhere. And as far as that whole subscribing and being aware of the next couple of things we've got up on the channel, we've got NXT TakeOver 25 predictions coming up tomorrow. Then, of course, the post show for that on Saturday. And then next week, we'll be getting into some other kind of things. So just stay tuned for all that stuff. We already ran down most of the plugs. So I think that the only thing left for me to talk about is the fact that eWrestling News and Bleacher Report is where you will find some other things that I work on, as well as some stuff for Rob, because he is part of eWrestling News team as well. The TeePublic and Redbubble is where you can check out the merchandise, and the Patreon is something that you should be aware of if you've got some spare change and you want to help us out that way.
Yeah, and if you do want to help us out that way, thank you very much. If you want to support me monetarily, you can check out timekillerapparel.com. And like Tony said, eWrestling News, Bleacher Report, Ring Report, it's all one big circle, guys. WrestleZone.com, I do their Facebook stuff. We're all over the place. We love wrestling, and we love you, and thank you. And, oh yeah, I'm on Twitter at DudePolice.
All right, everybody, that's going to do us in for this edition. Thank you all for listening for this and all your likes and follows and favorites and shares and all the other kind of stuff like that. We will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.